Hey everybody, welcome to Monday Night Live in Lexington. My name is Kathryn Kauffman and I'm a psychic medium here in Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome to my every Monday night talk show. I want to invite everybody to share and follow Mark C first on the notifications for Facebook, and go ahead and hit the share button on your screen right now and share this out in your feed. And also, this is part 2 of what do you do when hell is coming for you. Now, if you want to see part 1, I do have that loaded up on my YouTube channel, and I will leave a link in the comments after the show to part 1 if you want to watch part 1, because we had a lot of really good information in it. Let's do some quick shout outs. Hey to Melissa Begley. Big kiss to you and Miss Cleo, my favorite little black cat of all time. Hey to Edley Finley, Tiffany Arps, and Soror, Carrie, Elisa, Greta, Tracy, and Corey. Hey Corey, what's happening up north? How cold is it and how much snow do you guys have? Hey to all you guys over here on Instagram, thanks for joining us this evening. I'm going to recap really quick about part 1, kind of what we went over a little bit in part 1. Hey to Cheryl and Paige and Jennifer. Hey to Carrie Smith Donaldson, Peggy, Jennifer Kavanaugh, Cheryl Campbell, and Matt Johnson and Katie Kalonich. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the comments section. If I don't get to them after the show or during the show, I always do respond maybe the next 24-hour period. Now, before we all have to go to hell, same process as last week, we cannot go to hell without a martini. So I had David make me another martini tonight, and I'm going to be sipping on this while we talk about hell. Now, oh, so Corey says cold, but no snow. Awesome. Maybe snow this weekend. Maybe you'll get just enough to have fun with, Corey. And hi to Kathy Warner Harden. So we were talking about last weekend, what exactly is hell and what do I mean? Because some people were saying, well, hopefully hell won't come for me. Well, I got news for you. Hell comes for everybody. And when we mean hell, or we're talking about hell, it's a state of being. And that state of being is a state of torture or persecution, or it's a state of being so uncomfortable, it's suffering. And that is going to come to each one of our lives at some point or another, in the way of a loss of a loved one, certain type of tragic deaths, but also, you know, really critical illnesses and just ongoing illnesses. I mean, it doesn't have to be a devastating illness, but something that's, you know, ongoing for a long, long time creates a lot of suffering, and that can be a state of hell as well. Hey to Mary Lee, Belkin, Arthea, and Chantel. So it is going to come for us sometime or another, and what I've done is kind of developed. And really, honestly, you guys, this process that I put together was kind of a creation of my own, from my own state of hell, going through something like this. Now, as most people know that know me personally, my mother and father had passed away a long time ago. Oh, I've lost my feed. Hang on, let me reconnect here. Let's see. Let me make sure the feed is still going on the professional page, and it's still going on Instagram, but for some reason it dropped on the personal page. So I hope you guys can hop back on here. So, and what I'll do is I'll slice these two live feeds together on the edited version, and I'll put that on the YouTube channel. So it'll play smoothly on the YouTube channel, even though the feed dropped on here. Sorry about that, guys. Technology is not our friend this evening. But anyway, I was letting you guys know this was put together, a process that I used for myself, going through hell, a state of hell, in taking care of my parents before they passed on. And you know, there's lots of situations that you just have to suffer through. You can't do a whole lot about them. And so I kind of developed this system from having to go through it myself. So rest assured, this worked for me. It got me through it. And so I'm going to share it with you guys. So on part one, we discussed different types of hell, you know, different situations that you can be in that feel like hell. We talked a lot about the realization and the sinking feeling when things first happen, how you go into panic, and how to manage that panic phase. And so all of that is on part one for you guys. There was another point on here that I wanted to bring up this week too, is when you take time out to release the emotions that are building up or the emotions that are happening when you're going through trauma. Try to be alone when you do this. You don't want to be too close to other people when you release these emotions, because we now know scientifically that your emotions do affect physically the energy field of other people. And so it's really best to be by yourself and to ground those emotions out with some type of pink Himalayan salt, okay? Or to be in a natural environment, like on a hike in the woods, if you can. If it's really cold like now, you can't. But to also realize that you need to like sage or clear the area after you do release those emotions, because those can also be imprinted on the environment where you're at. And it's best to have that out in nature, where nature grounds that out naturally and it doesn't affect everything out there. Again, if you guys want to put a question in the comments, just go right ahead. See, I'm a little stuttery now because I'm afraid my feed will go back out. So we also talked last week about some of the gemstones that you can use to work through the panic phase and the ongoing phase, that if you're having a lot of stress. So now this week, the things that we're going to look at this week, and I'll just go through them really quick, is once the panic subsides, the second thing you're going to go through is bracing for the storm, okay? Bracing for the storm is gathering your reserves, gathering your resources, getting things done and completed that are important to you, that you don't want to have to shelve during the time that you're going to be spent going through this stuff. So what that means is, you know, getting bills paid ahead of time, stockpiling money back to pay bills when you're not able to work, because a lot of situations you're going to be required to be a caregiver, or you're going to be ill yourself and you're not going to be generating income. So you definitely need to put some money back, or go ahead and pay ahead on something. So especially if you see this coming, if you see a loved one that's deteriorating and you know that it's coming, put money back for the time that you have to take off to be with that person and care for them. And that way you're not adding another panic to the original situation. Melissa says rational versus irrational. Yes, absolutely. So you also need, when I say stockpile your resources and gather your reserves, you also need to, it's a personal energy resource level, okay, that you need to be sure you get enough rest, gather your strength. If you feel that it's coming and you can see that it's coming and your gut tells you this is going to happen, you definitely need to portion out your energy stores to last you adequately through the situation. And a lot of people will just go until they can't go anymore. And that's not the way to do. And that leads us to the next point, which is putting yourself on the shelf. So all of your goals or desires during this traumatic time need to be set aside until the situation resolves or stabilizes. And so that's probably the most difficult thing, because it takes a selfless type of mentality and attitude that you have to adopt to get through that, especially when you're caring for somebody else. You don't want to get caught up in self-serving thoughts, because what that's going to do is it will lead to resentment for the person that you're having to care for. So you really need to put your ego and yourself needs to go on the shelf. Okay. And you don't, there's no place for resentment in this. Now, if this illness, let's say the illness involves you, please do consider the things that you definitely need at this time. However, you need to remember, and attention needs to be drawn to your caregivers, because they're maintaining a high energy effort to get you through your crisis. And so you need to be very cognizant of the energy and time resources that are being spent on you through your caregivers. Be wary of, overworking them or requiring too much of them. Make sure that they have some time away from you to decompress and regather their energy reserves before they come back to take care of you. So make sure that they have plenty of breaks and rest. Now, the next thing is developing a strategy. And what that means is making out some type of routine, especially if this is an ongoing situation, on how you're going to manage your day, how you're going to spend your time, and sort of planning out rest breaks during that time. And so what you're going to do is just plot it out logically, how to deal with stressful situation. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that, because I can't think of any better strategy than the one that I used, and this was with my father. So my mother had Alzheimer's, but my dad had a vascular dementia. So dementia to me is dementia. It's very difficult to deal with. And I would have to go to Paducah and, cook and clean on the weekend, and then try to drive back to Lexington and work. It was a state of hell. And so and cleaning out the house, in the front closet, I opened it up, and there were hundreds and hundreds of those plastic Kroger bags that they had been saving and just cramming into the closet. Now, they didn't need those. Those needed to go. But because they were feeling the loss of control, my dad grabbed the bags and he said, "We got to have these. You can't throw them away." And I was like, "Yes, they got to be thrown away. There's hundreds of these. You don't need these." And I found myself on one end of the plastic bag and him on the other end of the plastic bag, in like a tug of war. And then it dawned on me that the strategy needed to be, instead of arguing, instead of ruining our relationship, instead of, remembering an argument like that near the end, I needed to let it go, let him put the bags back in the closet. And I realized that my strategy was that I would wait until they went to sleep, and then I would get rid of all the bags, and they would never know, because they would never even remember that they were there. And that's exactly what my strategy was, and it worked. So developing a strategy can really go a long way in this situation. Other strategies are preventative self-care during times of stress. When you know you're going to be under stress or trauma, let's say there's an impending surgery for someone that's coming up, you do need to take care of yourself. You do not want to become another problem in the equation by neglecting your basic needs and getting sick or ill yourself. So if that means you've got to take a multivitamin, take some emergency powders, and keep your strength up, do not skip meals. If you're too nervous or you're too anxiety ridden to eat, get a protein shake, drink lots of water. You know, you have got to manage your own energy through these crises. Let me check for questions. Yes, feel free to ask any questions, you guys. So that is the strategy, okay? Don't become another problem in the situation by neglecting your own basic needs. Rising to the occasion. This is another really difficult one. And a lot of people don't do this, and then they have a lot of regrets later. So sometimes we get so overwhelmed that we just think we can't handle anything else. It's an overwhelming sense of the whole situation that really weighs on your mind. And so because you're looking at it as a whole, and that's why it's just crushing down on you. If you will just focus on making it through the next 24 hours, and that's all you need to think about, okay? Just the next 24 hours. If you can do that, it sort of releases the magnitude of the situation. And then when the next 24 hours comes, you focus on just making it through that next 24 hours. So what you're doing is taking every 24 hours and just saying to yourself, if I can just get through this day and night, and then I'll handle the next one, okay? Don't look at the enormity of the situation, because that will just come crushing down on you. Taking it 24 hours at a time makes it easier to manage. Okay, now rising to the occasion means doing the hard work that nobody likes to face. Let's say you have a situation that there's a difficult decision that needs to be made, but no one wants to make it. Help the person that you're caring for out rise to the occasion by taking on that task and making the best decision that you can. Okay, just do the best that you can. That's all that can be expected. In the long run, afterwards, you will definitely not have any regrets later on. And that's what we're trying to prevent by you rising to the occasion, is that later on when you look back, you won't have regrets. You won't be wondering or wishing that you had stepped up to the plate. Okay, coping mechanisms employed. It's a good idea before things like this happen to identify what you're using as coping mechanisms, okay? Hey guys over here, hey, No Shitcast, how are you? Darby, Matt, and Dahlia, thanks for joining us. So lots of people don't even realize what their coping mechanisms are. So coping mechanisms are things like, you know, what do you do when you're upset to cope? Do you meditate? Do you go for a walk? Do you go to the Y and go swimming? Do you go for a jog or something like that? Do you get out your journal and journal it out? Really identify and try to adopt some extra coping mechanisms. Some people take up photography as a coping mechanism. It centers and calms the mind. Lots of guys love to game or do sports, and that is a way to cope with a lot of the stresses and traumas that go on. But you need to be very grounded during traumatic times, and that will keep you from really getting out of touch with your thoughts. Tony says, use food. Some do use food. Yes, they do. However, I find that when people are going through very severe, traumatic, critical stuff, eating is very difficult for them. And during those times, just a protein shake or a milkshake, anything either really sugary or really salty, seems to settle a person's stomach, and it kind of goes a little bit better with them than, you know, meat or salad or things that are hard to digest. So that would mean, you know, carbs are good during those times because they're easy to digest. Now, number 8 is resolution or ongoing hell. So at some point, hell is either going to keep going and it's going to be a state of being, or you're going to have a resolution, okay? Now, if it's something that you have control over to a certain degree, at this point, you really need to decide on how long you're willing to devote your energy to this state of hell that you're living in. And then at what point are you going to say, enough is enough, and things have to stop? Now, this can be caring for somebody else, or putting up with a situation from somebody else, or it can be an ongoing illness to which you're battling. At what point do you say, okay, that's enough and we need to call it a day? Or are you willing to see it through to the very end? These are all things that you've got to think about ahead of time, because when you're in it is not a good time to try to logically think through things. It's before these things happen that you have the best chance of formulating a plan and thinking logically about this. Now, sometimes that's not realistic. You're already in it. And then what are you going to do? Get a touchstone, somebody who is got their head on straight, who is a friend, who's not going to be too emotionally involved to make the decision, to help you logically try to plan out how you want to do this or how long you want to do this. That will be somebody who will be invaluable to help you when you're not thinking clearly. Okay. Okay, so let's see if we got all of that. Yeah. Recovery and preventing depression. Now, when you get in a state of hell, you're on autopilot a lot of times. And what that means is you're just functioning on adrenaline. You're go, go, go. And even your feelings are going to be put on that shelf until it's over. So when it's over, after the repetition and the repetitious stuff has stopped and everything has resolved, you may experience a profound depression. That's kind of normal, because when you're going through it, even your emotions are set aside. And so you need to take time afterwards to recognize, okay, this is just a delayed reaction that I'm having. I'm going through this depression and down phase because I put it off during the emergency. And now I'm allowing myself to feel this, and I'm allowing myself to go through it. Now, cautionary thing for this, you do need to allow yourself to go through those emotions. However, there needs to be a time limit that you set on this of how long you're willing to let yourself grieve and go through these emotions. Okay, let's say a week max. And then you need to pull yourself, use your self-help stuff to pull yourself up out of it. So Tony says, I always say I'm into win it. So for me, I will see it through to the end. Yes. A lot of people do feel that way, Tony. They would see it through to the end. But you know, there is a populace, and I understand this, when you just get so tired, your body will not let you go any further. And that's when you're ready to just say, I need a break. I'm done. So if you do have a big amount of depression after recovery, don't be too concerned, because it is a delayed reaction from being on that autopilot and not allowing yourself to go through the emotions. Number 10 was restoration of your life. And you know what? This can be an ongoing process. It, may be something that takes years, or it may never stop. Especially if let's say you get to the end of one state of hell and then another state of hell starts. Let's say you have a life-threatening critical illness, like I did when I got cancer in 2015. And everybody gets through that, life normalizes, and then another critical illness happens, like David's 2 heart caths last year. So it's going from one state of a hell, a brief break, and then another state of hell. So, try to have as much normalcy as you can. Take the in-between times to try to restore as much of your life as you can. And during that time, or whatever time that you have. And time is the key word here, because once you've gone through the state of hell and you've made it through it, you're going to realize that time, or your time, is the most precious commodity that you have. Time can't be replaced. It can't be rewound. And time is very precious because there's only a limited amount of it. So be very cognizant of who and what you're spending your time on. If you're spending your time on your loved ones and your family, you're investing in that love. If you're spending your time in your career and your business, that's going to leave you flat emotionally and spiritually. So time is your most precious commodity. So what that means is those in-between times, in between hell, what that means is, Tony will love this, eat the cake, have the beer, go on that vacation that you've been delaying for 10 years, and do the things that are on your bucket list, definitely. So that's all in restoring your life. Now, the last one that we're going to go through is finding peace, if that's possible. Not everyone can do that. Let's say you lose someone, or someone that's very close to you and special is gone. And it can be, you know, like the Alzheimer's. Once the mind is gone, it damages your connection with that person, and you already feel like they're gone. And so finding peace may not be possible for a lot of people who've lost children or loved ones, and they just can't let go of the loss. So something you need to consider here is, in order to find peace, you absolutely need to embrace your own future and your own destiny. Whoever was lost had their own destiny and their own purpose. And I'm not saying forget about them, but let go a little bit of their destiny and separate it from your destiny, because a lot of people, their life kind of ends with that person's death. But there's still a destiny of some kind for you, and some kind of soul purpose that you're not completing or you're not realizing when you can't find peace or let go of a certain amount of things. So try your best not to get trapped in sorrow and despair so much that you forget that you have a responsibility to lead your own destiny and to complete your own purpose. And with that, that's the end of our show. I hope you guys got something out of these tips and tricks from, you know, my experience of going through states of hell that will help you out when things happen to you. We're not doing what's for dinner tonight because I already cooked. I made an oyster stew this evening earlier, and David is upstairs in an oyster coma, asleep. So I told him I would leave him alone. I said, I'll leave you alone as long as you fix me one of these before you go take a nap. So anyway, thanks for joining me this evening. I hope you got something out of this. Go ahead and hit the share button and share this out in your feed. It may help a friend of yours or a family member of yours cope with their situation. I will see you next Monday for another episode of Monday Night Live, and I'll leave a link to part 1 in the comment section after the show. Melissa says, keep in mind our deceased loved ones would prefer us to have peace and happiness. Thank you very much, Melissa. That's very well said. Kisses from Kentucky. I'll see you next Monday night. Bye, guys. Sorry about the interrupted feed.